This is the Nubifier 1337, and this one is titled, Is Chris Roberts Worried About Starfield? Release Squadron 42. He misspelled Chris Roberts. It's not Chris Roberts, it's Christ Roberts, Lord and Savior of the space games. Anyways, let's see what Nubifier has to say about Is Christ Roberts Scared of Starfield?
So I thought long and hard about what to call this video, and I think that this title is perfect. I don't think it's baity at all. You let me know. Hello YouTubers, this is Nubifier. As a fan and follower of the continuing drama, which is the pre-alpha development of Star Citizen, I do like to play other games. I know that there are some purists out there who only play Star Citizen. That's fine for you, but that's not me.
I think, look, my forced 6-week break made me realize that there's I didn't have to realize there's other games to play, but it really made me go play those other games because Star Citizen wouldn't let me in, and I enjoyed them all. Here's the problem, though. I am a space junkie. Apparently I'm considered a millennial, but I don't like to consider myself that. I missed the cutoff by 6 months. Let's be honest here. I was born April of 81, and I missed the cutoff for being a millennial, or Gen X, I think it is. I forget whatever one comes before me, but I missed that cutoff by 6 months. I grew up with the original Star Trek, The Next Generation, Star Wars, Babylon 5, Deep Space Nine. I'm trying to think of all the amazing space things that we got in the 80s and 90s. Starship Troopers. All of these really cool space centrified sci-fi movies, TV shows. And I also grew up playing the X-Wing series, Wing Commander, TIE Fighter, Descent, etc., etc. People like myself, we crave to be able to go out in space, to explore, to fight, and die a lot. Andromeda, thank you Gamer Tree. How you all doing this morning? That's what I want, and I like that Star Citizen gives us the ability to take off from any point in the universe, land at any point on a planet or a moon, explore to a limited capacity. And there is a lot of things to do within the game, but once you've done them so many times, it kind of gets a little old. Anyways, as I was going with this, when I played those other games, I played Escape from Tarkov. I played, I went back to some Diablo 2. I played Overwatch. I played a lot of different games in that 6 week, and I shared a lot of them with you guys. MechWarrior 5, MechWarrior Online, I think I played. And I love all those games. I enjoy each and every one of them. Earth, the Final Conflict. Yes, I remember that one too. I enjoyed each and every one of them, but I kept getting that itch of wanting to get into a spaceship, call for takeoff, go and fly around, shoot some things, hang out with my buddies while we drop bombs on guys and had a good laugh about it, or, attempted to take over Ghost Hollow and have other people attacking. I missed that dynamic of Star Citizen. So as soon as it came back online for myself, I jumped right back in. But I can definitely see you have to take breaks. It doesn't need to be 6 weeks. No, it doesn't. But you need to take some breaks and kind of let Star Citizen slap you in the face again with that the alluring grandeur that is Star Citizen. There's not really another game that's quite like it. If they do eventually pull this off and the whole thing comes together as a game and they do pull this off, it will eventually be a game that, people compare. Like, I hate going back to Diablo 2, but because I spent 20 years of my life playing Diablo 2, Diablo 2 is the action RPG That's what all action RPGs are held up to, is Diablo 2. Maybe eventually we'll get to that point where 25 years down the line, all space sci-fi games are held up to Star Citizen. I would like to get it that way. I really would like to get it to that.
I find it great to take a break and dump into another title because there are too many people making too many other great games for me just to focus on one incomplete title.
Very true.
I do like sim and shooters, but I do like me a good first-person RPG like Fallout, Cyberpunk, or Borderlands. The gameplay may be fun, but what really gets me invested is those world-building, lore, character, and story. I back Star Citizen for the PU, and yes, of course I'm going to play Squadron 42 whenever it releases. On today's topic, is Chris worried about...
You know, I've asked this before, did anybody pledge for Squadron 42? Is anybody wanting to play Squadron 42? I'm kind of on the fence with Squadron 42. Like I kind of want to play it, but I don't really want to play it. The only reason I would play it is so that I could get the F8 Lightning in the PU, but outside of that, I really don't have an urge to play it.
Starfield, we should compare CIG against a more conventional game studio. By doing so, we will come to the conclusion that they are not the same, that they do not operate the same, and they do not have the same requirements. So we'll say that Bethesda Studio and CIG began working on their games at the same time. We will say that both companies estimated that it would take $300 million and 10 years to make the game. That $300 million may not happen all at once because of staffing and offices, but that will come from somewhere. Bethesda either allocates its own money to the project, or they take out a loan, or they get backing from another corporate entity. The pressure is on from day one to deliver, not only to the fans, but the ticking clock that is money. The investment and promises have legal contracts, and missing these, regardless of the reason, will have a cost. CIG's crowdfunding model means that they do not have to invest their own money, they do not need to take out a loan, and they're under no pressure from any other corporate entity, except for that South African dude. Due to the transparency, there's perhaps more pressure to deliver from the fans, but there's no ticking clock from money, just a ticking clock from any deadlines that were promised. CIG really has no personal investment because of the funding model, and they're not legally...
I think when you look at what's going on the left-hand side versus what's going on the right-hand side, I'm not saying that it's a good thing or a bad thing on either side, but I think if CIG did have that ticking clock of investors and corporate backing, then there would be a lot more things going on than there are right now. And I also think that doing two separate games is really, really killing them as far as getting things out in a timely manner. And I hate to say it, but Christ Roberts comes to us once a year at CitizenCon, twice a year if you count the letter from the chairman, and says, "Oh, thank you, love you guys, spend more money with us, we love you, thanks." And then they start putting stuff on the roadmap, and granted, we've been over this before on this channel. The roadmap is not solid, release date windows or anything like that, but they put things on the roadmap. They say things during their Inside Star Citizen. This is what we're working on. We're really close to getting this finished. We got this almost done. This is being worked on. And then when it gets pulled off the roadmap, or they do an Inside Star Citizen and they're like, yeah, well, we kind of stopped working on that. When we as fans go to Spectrum, or backers, when we go to Spectrum and we're like, well, why did you take this off the roadmap? Or why did this happen the way it happened when you said the opposite 3 Inside Star Citizens ago? And they're like, hey, no roadmap watching, no when questions, don't ask, because we're not telling. That's not right. And here's the thing. I gave you money. You should be answering to me slightly. Do I need to know what Christ Roberts had in his coffee cup that morning? No, I don't. But when you guys tell me that you're working on a feature, you're working on this new thing, or you're working on that, and you give me an idea of what's going on behind the scenes, only to pull it off and not talk about it again for the next 6 months to a year, you should be answering to me. I gave you money. You should be. Technically, I am your boss. Just like when we give votes and we give money to congressmen and representatives. They do answer to us, and they should always answer to us. Now, granted, that's not a apples to apples thing, but they should be answering to us in some sort of way, other than no when questions, because we get that a lot on Spectrum.
Liable for missing deadlines, even if doing so will result in a wave of frustration and drama. And we've seen no matter what happens, the funding keeps going up. So to answer the question, is Chris worried about Starfield from a corporate perspective? No, I don't think so. Starfield might actually create more love for space sim RPG in general, and basically that would be buttering up gamers and making them more interested in trying Squadron when it releases. Squadron is still a blip on the radar compared to a AAA game made from a AAA company. I'm not saying that there are not millions of people watching and waiting, but I will make my point this way. The most viewed video on the subject of Star Citizen is the Imagine trailer, which is a fan-made Star Citizen-inspired video. It was published on the 19th of December 2014 and in total has 2.3 million views. For comparison, the Starfield original trailer from 2 years ago has over 17 million views, the one from last year has over 5 million views, and the one from 10 days ago has 2.5 million views. Bethesda needs a clean launch, and they need to hit their release date or it hurts their company. CIG also needs a clean launch, but they actually don't need to hit any release date because aside from the work and time invested by its staff and perhaps the 1 or 2 people who bought a stake into the game, they won't be hurt. This funding model removes the ticking clock, and the past deadlines backfired badly, so it makes sense that they don't and shouldn't release any more deadlines. There's no reason to. People are still paying. Single-player games come and go regardless of how good they launch and regardless of how big they are. Off the top of your head, you can go down a list of games that came out in the last 5 years. You've watched all of the big streamers hype, play through, and then they die off. The hype is sustained longer for other game types which...
Well, there are some single-player games that are timeless and classic. You know, Ghost of Tsushima for me was really fantastic. I've replayed that a few times. That's on my PlayStation and not on my PC, so you know, I can't until I get a capture card and more equipment and other things. I can't really play that for you guys on stream. I would love to. It's a great story. Red Dead Redemption 2, fantastic. Red Dead Redemption 1, unbelievable. You know, this is a bit controversial, but you know, the original Star Wars, what was it? Star Wars Outcast, Dark Forces, Academy. Those were all really fun games. The storylines were pretty good. Obviously now a lot of those graphics are very, very dated. The new Star Wars game, I forget what it's called, the one with Cal Kestis. I only played the first one. That was really good. I'm trying to think of some other single player games that are really, really good. There's a few of them out there. That's the thing though. Just like with multiplayer games, there's only a handful of them that actually stand out versus the rest of the competition. And the same thing with single player games. You know, before I started playing on my PC more exclusively, I replayed Red Dead Redemption 5 times all the way through. And I have one of those playthroughs is 100% platinum and all of that stuff. So, you know, there are games out there that are going to be classics and timeless classics on at that. But let's see what else he's got to say.
Can generate a larger fan base, but the reality is you can watch Captain Richard or TV Liquid play through any game, but you wouldn't tune in if they only played Borderlands 2 or if they only played Diablo or the Old Republic. The same will happen with Squadron 42. 1 or 2 playthroughs at maximum, or perhaps every other Friday, you'll have a stream devoted just to Squadron 42. Repetition will eventually take over as people have seen it over and over or have played it over and over themselves. It'll release and it'll disappear with a huge bubble, which is fantastic awareness and would be a gigantic chunk of vindication for this project. There will always be those haters who call it a scam, but if Squadron 42 launches clean and delivers what was promised, you could easily always counter by just saying, yeah, it was late, but it wasn't and isn't a scam. I have some interesting things for you to consider. The more time we spend...
I think what he should have said is, well, my question is, okay, he said it was late, but it isn't a scam. But is it going to be any good? I don't have a lot of faith right now. I follow, I think it's called Shiny Tracker. I don't have a lot of faith right now that they can deliver us a 4-star, a 3.5 to 4-star game out of Squadron 42. I don't have that faith. Immersed, what's going on, man? How you doing? Good morning and happy Independence Day.
And perfecting the game, the better, and that's obvious.
America.
But what if the motivation isn't to finish the game fast, but to pause at the correct time? Releasing Squadron and Starfield at the same time is dumb. CIG might actually be aware that no matter how good Squadron is, Starfield still has a larger following. It's too late to launch it before, but I actually think that Chris has been moving the release date waiting for something else. It's a bit...
He is not moving the release date waiting for some other game to ride the coattails on. It's nowhere near done. And trying to kill myself landscaping. Oof. I did the mowing the lawn and all that the other day. As I was saying, he is not trying to ride the coattails of another game. The game is only half done. This is me looking at Shiny Tracker and the dev trackers and everything else. The game is only half done, which is in and of itself pretty scary that Squadron 42 is only half done, half to 60% done. Now, if you've all paid attention to what's been going on recently with patch 3.20 for Star Citizen, they added master modes to the experimental gameplay mode within Arena Commander, which is, it's a good thing, but it's a bad thing, and let me explain. It's a good thing because they were originally telling us that they were going to have master modes, that they were working on master modes, and then they were going to implement it for Squadron 42 and the PU, and whatever they did, it was final. Now they've since said, they didn't come out and say it, but now it's not final. Now it's in the experimental mode of Arena Commander. I don't think that I don't think Master Modes is a good thing. And I think Arena Commander is going to poke a lot of holes in it. On top of that, that means that they are putting that into, and this is the good part, they are putting it into Arena Commander. They're putting it into Arena Commander for us to play with, which means they're going to use 6 months, 8 months, a year worth to get our data and whatnot, to then decide whether or not it's a good thing and implement it into Squadron 42. Well, if the flight model is 99% of what Squadron 42 is. If you've listened to how they've dissected it, it's a large, very linear space game with some FPS involved. If this master mode doesn't go the way they thought it is, that means they got to go back to the drawing board and redo the entire flight model yet again. That would be what, the third or fourth time if this doesn't work out the way they thought it would. So yeah, it's a good thing, but it's a bad thing. And I just, once again, to hit on that point, I don't think Squadron 42 is anywhere near release date. I see gives me the experience of what I enjoyed about Stargate Atlantis and later seasons of Stargate SG-1, the ships, the interiors, boarding ships, landing on planets after flying lot. Yeah. Yes, exactly. I was saying that earlier. Yeah, manganese. I think I know what you mean. Yeah, I look. I'm not trying to shit on any one of the developers or Squadron 42 on a whole. I don't think they're as far as they say they are.
Bit of a joke at this point how every single free fly coincides with a horrible time to play Star Citizen PU.
That's
Many
true.
will say that the low performance is due to the free fly, but I can also see this as the desire to wow and impress with new features. New features at the release of a new patch in CIG's desire to hype things is for them to show what's been done, and that is exactly the right time for a free fly in their minds. Now we should escalate this 10 magnitudes and evaluate what would happen when Squadron releases. People's minds are blown by the story, game, and cinematics. Millions of people see and play, and then when all of that is done, they'll go play the PU. So let's say we have invisible enemy clipping through the floor, an MMO that has a player cap of 100, NPCs that T-pose on tables, missions that cannot be completed because they're broken, 150 non-flyable ships, and 1 out of 100 planned star systems released. So Chris will see Squadron not only as a game, but a massive advertising campaign for the PU. Squadron will sell. CIG will make a ton of money, and that'll be great for the company because unlike Starfield, all of this money is...
Getting to chat. Star Citizen to me is just different. The whole idea of flying and then getting out and doing stuff and logging out in your shit is still mind-blowing to me. There's some really good things about Star Citizen. It's not all bad. You know, sometimes I do these Hot Take Tuna Tuesdays and it comes out as all bad. And I think it's me just trying to keep in my frustration for the week. And then I get to these Hot Take Tuna Tuesdays and I'm like, argh! But I don't hate Star Citizen. I don't hate Chris Roberts. I don't dislike any of the devs. It's just, it's frustrating at how fast and how slow not how fast and how slow and how sometimes we're treated as backers with Star Citizen and Squadron 42. Good morning, Brian. I wish Squad was closer than I would have a Titan suit sitting in my hangar. I've seen those Titan suits. It's going to be interesting when they actually implement them, if they do implement them. Biggest complaint about Squadron 42 is all the quality of... Oh, yes. Star map, mobiGlas, bookmarks, waypoints, things that would make the PU 10 times better. I don't think it's... It frustrates me to no end that we keep hearing the Squadron 42 digital meat shield excuse. There's no reason why that stuff can't be put into the persistent universe. There's no reason. And if anything, people like me that are sitting on the fence about Squadron 42, where I don't really care whether I play it or not, the only thing that has me leaning towards playing it is the fact that I get a F8 Lightning out of the deal if I complete it. Well, that's what they say now. That could change in 2 weeks. We don't know. But one of the things that could tip me into playing that game is if those quality of life features that were in Squadron 42 were put into the PU, and I could be like, oh, so that's what they're doing. That's how the game's going to be like. These are the cool things that they're adding. Maybe I will pledge for Squadron 42 now. But right now, when you say, oh, well, we're working on stuff, but we're only going to release it to Squadron 42, and then we're going to bring it on over to the PU. No. It just makes me go, well, pardon me, but fuck it. I don't really care. I don't really care. If I don't get the stuff that... Look, and it makes me sound selfish, but if I don't get the shit that I pledged for, then why in the hell am I going to go and spend another... What is it? $40 for Squadron, and now it's out of the store, and they're probably going to raise it to 60 or 70 bucks. Why am I going to spend another 60, 70 bucks on a game that I don't really give a shit about unless I can see that those quality of life additions have been brought over to the persistent universe, and I can go, oh, so this is what's going to be in Squadron. Cool. This looks cool. This sounds cool. And I might get an F8 Lightning out of the deal. Sweet. Here, I'm going to pledge for this, and I will play this experience just because the quality of life is so much better in the PU. This game should be good. Should be good. Mangees, I bought a Prospector last night with in-game money, but I have no idea on how to use it. Check out Space Shorts. He does a lot of good stuff. He hasn't been on in a while, but he was doing a lot of good stuff. I'm trying to think of who else has been doing a lot of Prospector mining lately. There's a lot of good videos out there on YouTube on Prospector uses and like what mining heads to use and modules and etc. Yeah, the map is awful. I agree. Every White Knight excuse for PU problems is we are alpha testers, but so many features are kept in Squadron 42 where we can't alpha test them ourselves. Rect, I'm glad you brought that up. I have another video after this one that I think is right. That That is exactly what we're talking about right here.
Is pure profit because CIG didn't need to front their own capital, they didn't need to take out a loan, and they really have nobody to pay except for that one South African investor that we heard about 5 years ago. If you think CIG has missed deadlines due to mismanagement, I would say no, that's not possible. And I believe after thinking about all of this and how it would unfold, it now makes perfect sense. Chris is not worried about Starfield, but eventually Squadron 42 will seem more like a last gen instead of a next gen game. It has to come out soon, but despite everyone thinking Squadron is holding back the PU, it's actually the other way around. The PU needs to be better, more polished, more fleshed out, with pyro, functional meshed servers, persistence, missions, medical, law, bounty, and systems to explore.
But Noobifier, they keep saying, and this is not a shot at Noobifier, but Noobifier, I agree with you. They need all of that stuff, the rep, the bounty, the everything you just said, all of that stuff that you just said. But we can't get that because of the 1,000 employees. And I don't have an exact number, but they say a majority are working on Squadron 42. We can't get that stuff until Squadron 42 is finished, and then they can come back to the PU and start working on that stuff again. It's ridiculous. It's a stupid vicious circle, and it makes a lot of people on the outside looking in go scam, because we know all the shit that needs work on. We know all the shit that is broken. We know all of the things that need to improve for this to be a really decent game as it is right now. But every time we bring it up, it's, well, we gotta wait until Squadron 42 is finished. Ugh. JT, good morning. What's up, man? They are banking big time on Squadron 42. I think you're right, but I hope you're not right, only because I want... Oh, I got a big fuzz and hair on there. I want Star Citizen to succeed, and I want the PU to succeed.
These all need to be ready for the millions of new players. If you thought the little uptick during a free fly was funny, wait and see the joke when the servers get blasted with a tsunami of interest. I should end there, but I want to talk about transparency, missing deadlines, and the release schedule. Answer the Call was 2016, and that was already 2 years later than the original proposed release date. We all know that scope and scale grew, and this accounts for the missed deadlines, and this is why the funding continues to grow with no known plan aside from the Gantt chart and the bi-weekly updates from Jake. We know Chris loves a good show, but I also know that the last thing CIG needs to do right now is to hype a deadline and then miss it again. So I ask you a question, and this is where you can get involved. Let's say at CitizenCon, Chris announces that Squadron will release on whatever day. That could be Christmas, in the spring, next summer, whenever, and it doesn't actually matter. The media might go crazy and run a story. The media will also focus on the negatives with questions like, can Chris finally deliver? Will it miss another deadline? Positives and negatives both hype. And then CIG would pay money to run commercials, and they make the game available again in the store perhaps for $80. The release comes and goes. As planned, it's a perfect launch, and here's another way of doing that. Let's skip the announcement. Let's have no dates, no announcement, nothing. You log in one day, and the launcher is there after it's patched itself. There's a new tab that says Install Squadron 42. Again, no info up until this point. Let's say this happens to Captain Richard. They tweet about it, they install it live, and people rush to their systems to play and experience Squadron 42 for themselves. The media runs the story, and the buzz is even larger than if the date was announced. We don't have any negative stories because there it is, it's launched. New citizens arrive to play based on the hype, and yeah, I think this would be how I would like to have Squadron 42 launch. No announcement, it just shows up. So now it's up to you. You have a very big
Let's let him finish.
Comment in the comments with your comments about the following. 1. Do you think that Starfield has Chris worried? 2. Do you think that CIG is planning to announce the release of Squadron at CitizenCon this year? And 3. How do you feel about my proposal of a stealth launch for Squadron? Remember that all of the scenarios that I propose are under the assumption that there will be a clean launch, and after 10 years, let's assume that that's going to happen. All of the profit, prosperity, and vindication relies on that clean launch and a stable PU.
Okay, question number 1. Is Chris Roberts worried about Starfield? Yes. 2. What was number 2? Let me go back here.
I think that CIG is planning to announce the release of comments with your comments about the following. 1. Do you think that Starfield has Chris worried?
Yes.
2. Do you think that CIG is planning to announce the release of Squadron at CitizenCon this year?
No.
And 3, how do you feel about my proposal of a stealth launch for Squadron? Remember,
I have mixed feelings on a stealth launch. I think it would be really cool, but all those things that he said where, like, you know, the servers would take a huge hit, blah, blah, blah. If there was a stealth launch and a big streamer or even a let's leave big streamers out of it. Let's say there is a stealth launch and a majority of the big Star Citizen streamers see it and start playing it. The PU and trying to download Squadron 42, that will turn into a negative story because it'll be 4 or 5 days before regular people are able to play that. Because, you know, and I say regular people, regular people that work, have kids, have outside responsibilities other than just video games. It's going to be 4 or 5 days before those guys can all get that game downloaded and start playing it. Why? Because CIG and their Amazon servers are crap. They're crap. And it may not be the Amazon servers that are crap. It may just be CIG and their net coding is absolute crap, which is what I'm leaning towards. Their net coding is shit. So that was the Noobifier. I really like that video. That was really well done. I think it's got a lot of really good points in it. Some of them I disagree with, but overall, I think this was a really, really, really good video.